It's time to go over Photoshop brushes, finding new brushes and applying those brushes. Alright, so in order to bring up brushes, we need to go into Window and find our brush window. Open that right on up and look at all of these things in the brush and brush presets window. My goodness, there are so many things we can do. And everything's kind of grayed out right now because we don't have our brush tool selected. So let's go into our toolbar and select brush or press B to get to our brush. And now look, everything is open. So we can see over here all of our different kinds of default Photoshop brushes, and you can brush on your canvas and test out how all of these behave and look. And Photoshop has the way of, if you brush on top of an existing brush point, it gets darker and darker and darker and darker, like an actual brush. So you can kind of play around with all these brushes, see what they do. You can see you can move them around or just stamp them once to give an effect. There's a leaf that we could just stamp once. Moving around, some of them are fanned out more than others. Some of them are really soft, others are really hard, and you can just kind of play around. Okay, so we've fiddled around with all the brushes by now. I'm going to go into my history window and scroll all the way up to the top to go back to my original state. There's how my original file was. Okay, let's go back into our brushes. We also have these brush presets, which are preset sizes and widths of brushes that Photoshop is recommending for us. For instance, this brush here, they recommend. If we scroll down, this brush, they also recommend. So these are just preset widths. We can also adjust the size of the brush itself to bigger or smaller and see what it does that way. Okay, if we go back to brush, there are some additional options over here like shape dynamics, scattering, texture. We can add actual textures and patterns onto our brushes. Remember these bubbles from before? I can add this to our brush. These are all very advanced things that if you plan on painting a lot in Photoshop and really using brushes, I would highly recommend that you get to know these presets and all of these options. But for now, I'm just going to show you how to find some brushes online and then apply them into your brushes on Photoshop. Let's start off by going to one of my favorite sites for finding resources, including brushes, and download some brushes from that site. It is called Creative Market. You can see creativemarket.com. They have plenty of resources for designers, photographers, and artists. And the best part is that you can find Photoshop brushes here. So if I search Photoshop brushes, I can see all kinds of brushes that are ready to go for me to download. I specifically like realistic type brushes, and I think they look most interesting. So for instance, maybe I want to download this grungy Photoshop brushes pack, and this comes with a set of various 5 brush sets and of all different textures, and you can see here all the different 5 brush sets. So I already purchased this and I've already downloaded it and put it onto my desktop. It was only $4, not very expensive, but now it is on my desktop right here. So we can see my brushes that I've downloaded here. And I'm not going to double click on them to open them quite yet. I'm going to go back into Photoshop and load them that way. In order to load brushes, I need to go back into my brush presets window right here. And I need to click on the little menu up here in the upper right hand corner. And you can see all of these presets here and all of these options. But I just want to load some new brushes that I downloaded. And I'll go to my desktop, go to those brushes that I downloaded, and load them in this way, okay? So we'll start with the first one. I'll open it. And where did it go? I think it actually went all the way down to the very bottom. And there you can see them. These are the coffee stain ring brushes that I just downloaded. So if I open up my brush tool, and I scroll all the way down to these presets, these are the new brushes that I've downloaded. You can see them here. So there's my coffee stain. It's huge, so I can lower the size substantially. Let's raise it a little bit more. And then there's my coffee stain. So if I click a few times, it gets darker. One time lighter. Pretty cool, right? Let's try loading another brush just to see if it does the same thing. Let's go to brush presets, click on the little menu, and go load brushes. Here it has remembered my folder of new brushes. Let's go to the second brush set, open that, and we'll scroll down, and yep, there we go. There are new brushes at the bottom. And these are little grungy paper frame edges. You can see, like that. And we have all 4 corners here, which is really nice. Again, let's lower that. Just like that. So again, brushes are an extremely valuable thing to know how to use, and I think that I've taught you pretty well to go ahead and find some brushes online or to be able to use the default brushes. The important thing to remember are the 2 windows. We have brush and also brush presets, and always make sure that your brush tool in the toolbar is selected so that you can use those brushes. And make sure to look at your brush tip shapes and go crazy, because it's really fun to use all of these little options, thickness and length, to kind of mess with your brushes and alter them in Photoshop before using them. A huge tip is to always make a new layer each time you're using brushes so that you don't have to completely start all the way over whenever you make a mistake. And trust me, with brushes you will make plenty of mistakes because they are pretty tricky and very finicky, but exceptionally fun to use.